Brown Bear was a little grumpy that morning because
Hello, happy Saturday. Just gonna play some music and ground myself for a minute. Welcome. Say hello if you're stopping by, whether it's live or on the replay, so I can connect with you one-on-one. For those of you that may not know me very well yet, I'm Angela. I am manifestation and earth magic mentor for women and a personal coach, a coach for personal development and spiritual development and mindset. And today we're going to talk about the Hermetic principle of correspondence. Just going to give it a moment because when I do lives, sometimes it takes a few minutes for people to come on, and then I wind up repeating myself. So I'm going to try not to repeat myself so much in one episode, so in one live. So I'm just going to listen to this beautiful short shamanic journey. It's from a channel called Hummingbird Flutes on YouTube. The name of the video is Discover Inner Peace Through a Short Shamanic Journey. And I listened to this track before all my calls. There's something about it, and it's only 5 minutes long, so, well, yeah, four and a half minutes long. So it's perfect for, like, dropping down into the body, becoming present, calming down the nervous system. So, if you remember, this is video 3 in this Hermetic Studies series, the Hermetic philosophy. The first video, we went over the principles, where they came from, Hermes Trismegistus, and we talked about a little bit, covered each of the principles. Now, last week we talked about the principle of mentalism. All is mind. And another principle that we'll be discussing at another time is the principle of vibration. Everything vibrates, so different vibrations happen at different rates. So it could be stated that the physical is the lowest vibration, the lowest or the slowest rate of vibration. And that the spiritual plane of existence is the quickest vibration. Now this is seen in so many things in our reality. The principle of correspondence is often described as above, so below, and then as within, so without, as the universe, so the soul. And so you could say that we are experiencing in the physical a reflection of a mental construct. Let me just make sure I'm in the right place. Why am I not coming up live in the right place? Strange. There we go. Okay, I am live in the right place. Just making sure. I don't want to be blabbing on and be in the wrong place. So, in order to understand how our reality is constructed, we have to understand the flow of power from within to without, from above to below. And in those terms, below and above, within and without, I mean, they're not necessarily perfect terms, but we can use them. They help us to make sense of it all, right? If there's one thing to understand about the flow of nature, the flow of power, the flow of life force that flows through all of us, it means that the physical can influence our decisions. But the physical world is not caused by what happens in the physical world. The mental processes that go on within us and within us as a collective is what causes our outward reality to be what it is. And so, as a result of my experiencing something in the physical, I can make a new choice, a new decision. I can have a response mentally, which then is a new cause in the mind, which will have other effects in the physical. But we don't want to confuse the idea that in my mind, that my mind can be influenced by a decision that I'm making about the physical. The physical has properties that are causative, that cause other reactions, but from the physical point of view, from the Hermetic point of view, the physical world is actually an illusion. The most modern sciences can help you to understand this, and it's proven that the physical world is really an illusion, and there's actually more empty space in the physical realm than anything else. And the fact that it's mostly empty space means that the forms and the experiences that we're having in the physical are something that we're experiencing within our minds. It's not really out there, which is mind-blowing, because we are raised to believe that it's the opposite. That it's the opposite. And that's why most of the subjects that we talk about here, magic, even mindset, natural law, understanding the nature of our reality, spirituality, manifestation practice, magical practice, this is all influenced by the fact that we're changing our thinking from what we grew up with, what we were told to believe and understand about the world around us, and how it really works. And so you're going to hear me repeating myself quite a bit, because really it's training your mind to learn how to think in ways in which it actually starts to understand the concepts of how reality really works. And a lot of times that's going to require repetition. And so don't get upset with me if you hear me repeating myself a lot. It's for a reason, and it's a good one. It's a good one. I listened to, I think, Abraham Hicks and channels like that for years before I was able to really wrap my mind around it in any kind of way that I could actually create something in the physical realm with that knowledge. And so be patient with yourself. This is different than what a lot of us are taught to think about our reality and about ourselves. So through the principle of correspondence, we're able to find our way through this illusion, and we learn how to remind ourselves that the basic correspondence, that which is manifest, is a corresponding thought. There's a corresponding idea behind it. We can go on about that for days and days. I may not always call it the principle of correspondence. Some people call it the mirror principle. But it's this idea the things in your outside world are merely a reflection of things in your mind, and your vibration and your thought forms, your feelings, your inner state of being. And so the only real way to change things in the physical world is to change the astral, or to change the mind. So it's almost like we have to make it be so in the mental before it can happen in the physical. Because the physical realm of effect is not causative, it's effect. So the inside of us, our mind, our mental processes, the way we feel, our emotions, our mindset, our thought patterns, our inner narrative, what goes on in the inner world is what creates what goes on in the outer world. And this you may understand. This is why we live in a society where the powers that be push fear and anxiety to the masses. Because fear and anxiety is going to cause the chaos and confusion that the masters of this reality want humanity as a whole to be in, because they have control. When we are confused and scared and fighting with each other and not clear and understanding how things work and in tune with ourselves and with each other, if they continue to keep us in fear and in anxiety and in confusion and chaos and arguing and fighting with one another, then we can't come into alignment with the truth of who we really are, comprehend how this reality really works, tune them out, and come together in unity and organize. That is their greatest fear. Because then we will control this reality. And so that is done with inner work, right? It's you first, right? So there's nothing that we can go and do in the outside world that will do anything that will be as lasting, as important, as trying to think of the right word. There's nothing that we can go do physically that will be as sustainable as the work we do on the inside. And so that's basic magic 101, right? If you want to see something happen in your physical universe, you've got to make a thought form. You've got to create some kind of thought form, or you have to let go of an existing thought form if you're trying to banish something. Most of us already understand this. But there are other implications that may not be quite so obvious. Some people call it the law of signatures. And this is really just it's a better way to break down correspondence on a smaller scale. So you know how we have magical correspondences, where our herbs and our crystals and the colors and the candles and all of these things are corresponding to an energy, a frequency of the thing that we want to create. So there's this thing where, so this is that concept, right, that everything has its own energetic signature, its own energetic frequency, right, and that things correspond to certain forces in the invisible world. So for instance, like say sunflowers, they have the signature of the sun. They kind of look like the sun. So they will be corresponding to the sun if you want to use them in your magical practice. And we have lists and lists of correspondence like this. Things that correspond to planets or gods and goddesses, or things correspond to other things. So it's helpful to understand how correspondence works, so that if you're working any kind of magical operation, you can allow yourself to really align with those energies on the invisible plane. Because by utilizing and putting yourself in touch with their physical representations on the physical plane, for instance, having a bouquet of a specific kind of flower, or a certain fragrance, or a certain herb or crystal, or using certain colors, etc., etc. When we work magic, it's not because those things have special powers in and of themselves. That's what's so important to understand about the law of correspondence and why we use certain implements in magic, and not so much that those things have special powers on their own. It's actually lacking in power. When you think of it, it's not that this crystal or this herb or this necklace, a talisman or whatever itself is going to cause something to happen on its own or emit certain, but what it will do is it will emit certain vibrations in order for me to get what I want, in order for me to tap into that energy so that I can bring forth what I want. So all that happens, everything that actually goes on outside, happens on the mental plane first. And that these tools, these things, these stones or herbs or whatever you're using, they have causative powers. And if you're imagining that they have the power over you, then you're actually disempowering yourself, because then you're not understanding the flow of energy, and you're thinking that the flow of energy is going backwards. So if you think that those things have the power in the magical practice, those things outside of you, then you're actually taking yourself out. You're taking the magic out of the situation, because you're relying on an object to do the work that it just can't do. And so working with correspondences, we're allowing ourselves in a very deep way to attune our minds to a particular vibration, to a particular frequency. And when our minds align with that particular force, then we can create what we want in the physical world. And so we have that power in the mental realm to create changes both in our own consciousness and in results in our lives. So using the Hermetic law of correspondence, we must understand that what we're doing, we must understand why we use correspondences in our magical practices. That way we're not expecting the crystal to bring the magic into the spell. That we'd be doing it backwards. We'd be disempowering ourselves. So understanding why we do what we do is really important, so that we actually get results, right? So the correspondences that we use in our practices really symbolize to our mind certain things that are happening on the unseen realm, and then the mind gets behind that, and it helps us to create the result that we want in the real world. Like, for example, when you burn sage, it's your mind that's clearing the space, not the sage. And so you have to have an intention for the sage smoke to clear the space. It doesn't work if you just burn it and you don't have the intention. And this is the reason why. Because your mind is just using the image of that smoke to create the change. And so it's the smell, it's the vibration of it, it's all the things that get your senses, that get your mind into that clearing energy that causes the clearing. So interestingly enough, it doesn't work in the way that we think it's going to work. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to key into deep forces within your mind. So this is, in the sense, this is similar to like when we go to a hypnotherapist and we can recall things that we don't normally remember. if, you know, in hypnotherapy, we can remember specific things that happened, and they're always there in the mind. They never go away. And the same thing is true with the collective consciousness for the entire species of humanity. That we do have deep understandings. We are collecting more information than we realize, and that it's all stored deep within us, right? And so it's not seen on the visible, on the it's unseen, but yet it's still affecting our outward reality. It's still affecting what happens on the physical plane. So when we work with correspondence in magic, we have to remember that everything in our lives corresponds to something. So every single aspect of our experience corresponds to something in our mind, something in our memory. And it might also be part of the group mind, out of the collective consciousness. It could be something that your family holds dear, or something the people in your household holds in its collective mind, or the nation, or a coven, or... So each group of individuals has a connection, and they have a collective mind working together. And so it helps to understand this, so that we're not working hard and busting our butt to make things happen in the physical world, on the physical plane, because it won't help. It won't actually create any results until you've done it with the mind. And once you've done it with the mind, it'll either happen spontaneously, or you'll be compelled to do certain things, get certain things done, show up someplace more often, because you've taken care of that thought, that mental process, the thing that you desire. And this is where intention comes into play, right? And this is where setting clear goals comes into play. It's about thought forms. We can heal if we can keep a consistent thought form of healing in our mind. And so we can work with it on the inside, on the inside and on the outside, but we can't just come at it from the outside. And so everything in the invisible realm has a corresponding thought form. And so that's why it's so important to understand that you can't create lasting change in your life unless you understand that the thought forms are what is needed to be changed, or what is needed to be let go of or installed in order to have what we want. And so literally, it's mindset. Literally, it's all about what we're thinking and how we're feeling. And so it doesn't matter how much work you can go and do out there. That's why people can work their whole life, and when they say they don't have enough money for something, or they're trying to save up for something, they forever have to work harder and do more. And then they may achieve it, but it's not permanent. Why? Because they're not creating it in the physical. I mean, in the non-physical first. And so it has to be a thought form first. And this can be very challenging. Because you're going against your own ego consciousness. And you're going up against the thought forms of the collective and your programming, right? And so it's not always an easy thing. And sometimes it can seem really slow for changes to occur. But that's because the corresponding thought form exists in a place that's, you know, especially when it's a societal thing or the norm for a great number of people, it exists in a place that's being held onto by so many people, that the best thing to do is to recognize that everything you see and everything you hear and everything you taste and smell and see and can feel and can interact with in the physical universe is correspondent to something in the invisible world. And that is the invisible world of thought. Because thoughts have a quicker vibration. And so I hope that that made sense, and I hope that that served you in some way. I hope that you had some sort of click there, here, or there. If you're stopping by and watching on the replay, please leave questions if you have questions below. I will be doing another one of these on Saturday, and yeah, we'll go through all of them. And then afterwards, we can talk some more about the other laws of and correspondences that laws and principles that you hear about in popular New Age or manifestation or whatever teachings, magical. We'll talk more about them as well, so that we can kind of understand that really there's a ton of them, and a lot of them are just lesser principles that revert back to these. So you'll hear a lot in manifestation, in the manifestation world or the law of attraction world, about the mirror principle. This is the law of correspondence. This principle of correspondence is where the mirror principle comes from. It's just a lesser, easier, simpler way to break down this very complex principle of correspondence. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And actually, we will have a full moon on Monday. So I will 100% be here on Monday to do a reading live in the group and have a chat about the moon. In fact, I might be back tomorrow on Sunday to do that and talk about maybe some ideas for rituals. If you guys are into that, let me know. Drop a heart below if you want to hear ideas on rituals and spells that you could do for this full moon. If people want it, then I'll come provide. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend if I don't see you.